The mission of the Bartlesville Police Department is to enhance the quality of life in our community by working cooperatively with the public and within the framework of the United States Constitution to enforce the laws, preserve the peace, reduce fear, and provide a safe environment for all of our citizens. Hello and welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Police Chief Tracy Rolls, and I thank you for being here today to enjoy this show with us. Today in the studio we have the Deputy Police Chief, Rocky Bevard. Chief Bevard, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Since 1986,
Yes, sir.
you've been employed by the City of Bartlesville at the Bartlesville Police Department.
I have.
A lot of things have changed
They have.
since then. So, what was policing like then versus today?
Well, much different. The first thing that comes to mind is technology. Technology has driven our field leaps and bounds from where it was when I first started. And that goes from everything to the weapons that we carry, the cars that we drive, the way we communicate with one another. Cell phones, for example, weren't in existence whenever I first started at the police department. We used pay phones to communicate with dispatch. There was pay telephones on every corner, outside of every store. And believe it or not, the officers had those phone numbers memorized so they could call a dispatcher over the radio and say, call me at this number. And that's how we would talk to dispatch if we needed to, instead of using cell phones like we do today. Of course, we didn't have access to the internet. We didn't get computers in our police cars. I think in 2012 is when we got computers in our police cars. Of course, the bigger cities, out west in California and out on the East Coast, they had mobile data terminals when computers first became available, I think. But the cities in the mid part of the country, especially smaller cities like Bartlesville, just didn't have access to that technology. People back when I first started, people knew their neighbors. People knew all of their kids, the neighbors' kids. They knew who belonged to what house. It was kind of like when I grew up in the 70s. It was still going on that way in the 80s when I first started at the police department. And if we got a call in a neighborhood, people knew who that child belonged to. I think that's changed a lot with technology in a bad way. We have good things that have happened with technology, a lot of good things. What we're doing today, for example, is a great thing, the way to get communication out to the public. And things are a lot more streamlined when it comes to publicity for the police department and police work in general. Whereas years ago, something happened in Bartlesville that was newsworthy. In Tulsa, it would be several days before people ever got that news.
Sure.
So those are some of the main things that have changed.
So let's talk about some of the stuff you brought here.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on this, and I think it's really cool. I mean, even the weapons that
That's my dad's gun.
the gun that your dad, and we should tell people,
Sure.
your dad served as a Bartlesville police officer,
1968 is when he started.
and he retired from here,
1998.
and then you got to work about 13 or 12 years alongside your dad here as a Bartlesville police officer.
Yep.
And your son serves as the Washington County Sheriff's Office as a deputy. So
He does.
3 generations, and we thank you and your family for your service and all that you've done in over 33 years
Sure.
for the Bartlesville community. But just the difference in the gun that your dad was issued versus the gun that you carry now.
And those were the guns that we bought our own weapons then. This is a department issued Glock 40 caliber that we carry now. Much more subdued looking, than the guns that guys carried back then when they bought their own weapons. And these weapons were typically stainless, or some of them chrome plated. a lot shinier, and they were, of course, the revolver style. We didn't have semi-automatic weapons.
Right.
Back then.
And even the uniforms, I think we have an old style uniform, nice brown color.
Yeah. And you know, our look then was kind of stereotypical of the highway patrol.
Mm-hmm.
The highway patrol wore this color of uniform. And this is the uniform I first wore when I started here in 1986. You know, your brown. I think the trousers were the same color as the lapel. So that was the uniform we began wearing. We transitioned to the uniform like you see in this picture, where I'm photographed with my dad in the mid-90s.
Is that kind of the light blue?
The light blue, powder blue uniform, and whereas now we've gone to the darker navy color, and I think eventually we're going to go to a gray shirt.
Correct. And these outer carriers that all the police officers are wearing today, you guys didn't wear those when you started?
If you wore body armor, it was under the uniform shirt.
If you wore body armor.
If you wore it. A lot of guys, especially older guys, when I started, didn't wear body armor at all.
Sure. So in August of 2019, you were promoted to the deputy police chief after being a captain for about 10 years.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of major changes have occurred in the past 2 or 3 years, and that's late in your career, and sometimes that's difficult.
Sure.
So could you touch on some of the changes since you became deputy chief, and even before a year or so before that?
Yeah, and a lot of that's technology driven. We've tried to reach out to the public on social media platforms. We've gotten our own app, My PD app. We have one-stop shop, if you will, to get to all of the websites that you need to get to that involve our department on that My PD app. We've increased our technology in criminal investigations. We have cell phone technology there now, where, you know, any crime that we investigate these days, there's a telephone present, and that's really come a long way in solving crimes. Cameras that you see on houses, they've gotten cheaper for the public, and we have access to a lot of video out there that we didn't used to have. Training. Our training has really increased exponentially. We're looking at partnering with Tri-County Tech, hopefully through the next legislative bills that are passed. We'll have the opportunity to hold our own CLEAT academies at our Tri-County Technology Center here, where we have our east side substation, which is another thing that we've done in the last 3 years. We've needed that as Bartlesville's expanded to the east and to the south. We've needed the availability of having a substation out east where we're closer to those communities than everybody being in a centralized location, kind of, in Bartlesville, which is where we're at right now. Now we can spread those resources out and have them more available to the public out on the east side of town to have that east side substation. So there's just a few of the major changes that I've seen in the last 3 years.
Sure. So in closing, quickly, what does the future look like here at the Bartlesville Police Department from your eyes?
Well, it's bright. I believe that the professionalism in our department has gradually increased throughout the years, and I think in the last 10 years it's really exponentially increased. The professional, we expect more education and training of our officers. There's more mandated training at the state level. We have the opportunity to have resources at Tri-County Tech here in the city that we didn't have before, that we can use to train our own staff. Travel expenses will go down. I think our budget will continue to increase because of you know, all of the service agreements that we have for the technology that we use. Things are just going to continue to professionalize in our career that we've chosen here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you and your family for your service again to the community and to the citizens of Bartlesville and Washington County. We certainly appreciate it. I appreciate your steadfast leadership in my transition and really helping me get off on the right foot, and I really do appreciate that. You'll never know how much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you all again for joining us on Behind the Badge. Be sure to check out the Bartlesville Police Department Facebook page to catch Behind the Badge there. Also YouTube at Behind the Badge and Instagram at BPD Badge. So until next time, stay safe and thank you all.